And so I stand here today, on this eve of on the International Day of Peace. I want to, there's a lot to reflect on. It's especially important for Americans to reflect because we hold personally and collectively the responsibility for an overtly aggressive military-industrial complex, one that spurred a direct warning to us from President Eisenhower. So today I want to start my reflection first on a personal note, and it starts at various peace education center events and outreach efforts that we do around town, because I've had questions posed to me from people who come and visit our tables. An example is somebody asked me Memorial Weekend, do you celebrate Memorial Day? Somebody asked me that. In some meetings I've had people question my understanding of the sacrifice of this military personnel. And even presidential candidates like John McCain last year tout as a campaign strategy that they come from a military family. So I asked, who in America doesn't come from a military family? My grandfather served in World War I. My dad served in the front lines of World War II. My brother served in Vietnam. And I had a nephew who has come back injured from Iraq in this current American occupation. So for all Americans who have a similar line of military veterans, from the Ricos to the McCains and everybody else, it's time that we ask, why is there a nonstop progression of American war and militarism? In my military family, from World War II to World War I to the present, I feel I personally face the toughest, meanest opposition of all, the American military-industrial complex and the war that it perpetuates. Long overdue is a time to end this cycle of violence, militarism, and yes, American imperialism. As some of you may know, my father passed away 3 weeks ago. Over the years, many people have loved to point out that our World War II veterans defended our freedoms and way of living. But I can say that my father, and he agreed with me on this point, did not fight and serve this country to give his country the right to torture, the right to run black prison sites, to invade countries illegally, to spy on its citizens, to protect corrupt corporations in Wall Street, to leave millions with no health care, to leave citizens with substandard wages, to leave citizens with no pensions or a social safety net. Do I celebrate Memorial Day? I sure do, with the understanding that patriotism is not a one-way street, and patriotism is not solely the corporate interest of this nation and its military-industrial complex. Yes, the ending of perpetual war and militarism is long overdue. And the Peace Education Center has a long continual history of working for the achievement of peace. In fact, this December marks the 40th anniversary of our organization. A fact that makes our reflection, looking back, very important. We have to ask ourselves, what road have we traveled? What are the successes? And as my co-chair, Melissa, will talk about in a moment, where are we going as a peace movement? In preparation for our 40th anniversary, we have been in the process of taking inventory of our peace actions, literally and figuratively. In fact, we hope many of you, as part of the Peace Education Center, and many people have been involved here with our organization, we hope that you can join us in telling our story. I hope you talk to us afterwards so we can get your contact information, because we are collecting stories that we want to tell. We're collecting photographs, and we're preparing for 12-month celebration of our organization. So we invite you to be part of that, so we can document all these actions that we've done over the last 40 years. I think that there are so many times that all of us, we probably all marched thousands of miles and carried hundreds of peace signs over the years, and we want to tell that story. We definitely want to tell that story. In fact, Barb Tebow, one of our early staff members for the Peace Education Center, she just loaned me a box full of old PEC newsletters and documents. And these documents from the 70s and 80s are, to me, just astonishing. We have reports in those documents of the day on March 31st, 1978, when the Peace Education Center's South African Liberation Committee convinced the Michigan State University Board of Trustees to divest of its interests, its stocks and business interests in companies operating in South Africa. That was the first university to do so. In the earliest configurations of the Peace Education Center's Middle East Awareness Committee, the PEC spurred a state, national, and an international effort to free an MSU student of Palestinian descent who had been improperly arrested by the Israeli government. In the early 80s, the peace community got a Jobs with Peace ballot initiative passed through the city of Lansing. Also, there was a statewide nuclear freeze ballot proposal passed with the strong support and action of the Peace Education Center and all the peace activists in mid-Michigan. In preparing this history, I don't think any of these specific successes tell our true story, because there is a bigger theme that emerges from these smaller, big successes. Here are two to consider that I want to share with you. First, I think the peace community has often been at the front end of exposing the truth and speaking truth to power. The Peace Education Center drew attention in real time to American involvement in Chile, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and other places. If you missed our newsletters from way back, you can now go to the bookstore and buy books titled Safe for Democracy, The Secret Wars in the CIA. More recently, in the George W. Bush era, we protested in real time American occupation in Iraq and American treatment of prisoners at Abu Ghraib and elsewhere. If you missed our protests, you can go to the bookstore and now buy titles called Getting Away with Torture, Secret Government, War Crimes, and the Rule of Law, and other books on the topics. Bottom line is, we have been here struggling for peace, but still too busy to move on. We're too busy moving on to the next peace and justice struggle, too busy to talk, to speak truth to power, too busy, in fact, to stop and tell people, we told you so. Second, the peace community has been relentless in its pursuit of peace. I hold up my good friend, Bill Petrie, as an example to illustrate my point. Bill passed away the same week that his father did, and I see him as epitomizing what we have done at the Peace Education Center for the last 40 years. I break down Bill's activism. I call them the Petrie principles. I guess I'll give it a title.
Wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful.
And I break it down to 4 principles that Bill represented, or that he did. Number 1, show up. Number 2, be persistent. Number 3, don't ever give up. And number 4, show up, be persistent, and don't ever give up. So I know after the International Day of Peace on Monday, after that comes Tuesday. And we will have continuing challenges, as Melissa will talk about in just a second. But whatever those challenges are, I can assure you of one thing. We're showing up with our persistence, and we're not going away. Peace.
Yay.